Welcome to Faith Over Breakfast. You are listening to a podcast by Pastor Eric Deepen and Pastor Andy Littleton. If you enjoy Faith Over Breakfast, we encourage you to rate it on the Apple Podcast app, on Spotify, or Google Play. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. Who's got this? Welcome to No, see, I don't have it. You should do this.
All right, welcome to Faith Over Breakfast. I'm Andy Littleton. This is Eric Deepen sitting across from me, and we have been on summer break. And we're back. So we are excited to be back. This is kind of a re-entry podcast. You hear a little bit about where our heads are at after the summer. For those of you especially interested in us and our churches, then you'll probably enjoy this. And if you're looking for the deep take on something in politics, you'll be very disappointed. But
that might come.
I'm sure it'll happen.
Yeah,
it'll come.
Yep.
So anyway, thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, I'm very excited. We're good enough. Hi, Andy.
Hey, what's up, man? It's been a bit. I kind of forgot how to podcast.
Yeah,
and how to wake up in the morning. Apparently.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
It's gotten so bad that nobody listens to our podcast anymore. They've just decided to quit.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
But a couple of weeks ago, I'm at Crave Coffee.
Uh-huh.
And this guy, I'm sitting there waiting for the coffee. If you've been to Crave, you know there's a little side you got to wait before Fatmir brings you something. And there's a guy sitting there, and he's listening to me talk. I'm meeting a new guy from our church. And he's like, "Are you Eric Deepen?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And now in this town, if somebody asks you that question, that doesn't mean I know you, Eric. That means I know your dad and I know your mom, right? And he looked like a guy, he must be, I don't know, in his late 20s. But I thought, so I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm Eric." And I'm waiting for the love your dad, know your dad, love your mom, know your mom.
Dad saved my life.
Dad saved your life. I've got lots of
Dad
stories.
wrecked my life.
Yeah, whatever it is. My dad was coached by your dad, whatever. It's like, even though Tucson's big, this is a small town. And he says to me, "Oh man, I listen to your Faith Over Breakfast podcast all the time. I recognize your voice."
Wow.
And I had this moment of what?
Yeah.
What podcast do you listen to? I do a podcast? What are you talking about? Who are you? And I don't know if I was even that nice to the guy. So sorry if you're listening. I was just so caught off guard.
The 2 times that's happened to me, it's been at Crave.
Yeah.
And it's been people from the village.
Yeah. And I don't know if this guy goes to your church. I didn't recognize him, and I don't remember his name. But...
And he feels so honored right now as he's listening in and goes, "Oh, he didn't remember my name."
Yeah.
Wow.
But he was so kind. He said, "You're doing a really important thing. Keep up the good work."
Oh, cool.
So,
well, shoot.
Welcome back, Andy, to a really good thing. We were doing a good thing. I was excited about that. That really felt good.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's super cool. And when I meet people from your church, I'm always thinking, well, they know me because they listen to Eric's podcast, Faith Over Breakfast. So.
Right, there you go. So
that I happen to be on as well.
You've been on vacation, or I've been on vacation, or we've been.
You tend to take a month off. That's what you do. Yeah.
I do, and so
I have been in and out.
You've been in and out. So what have you been up to?
Just having more time to myself on Tuesday mornings.
Yeah, what have you been doing with your Tuesday mornings?
Oh, I've had plenty to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, just filled it in with other
things,
stuff. Yeah.
Any highlights?
I had a moment the other day where I thought, I've been staying up on my tasks pretty well, and it just dawned on me. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's this one little 1 hour podcast. Maybe that's the big change. It changed everything.
Well, and Rod's not been doing well. Maybe you stopped all of the interaction with him, or
actually, that has had the opposite effect, to where I have hosted the breakfast.
Oh, you've had
to
pick up some of the slack for
which
him.
It's not hard to do. What we do, we sit at breakfast and talk about whatever, and so it's not.
Yeah, I haven't been to one of those in a while.
It's not that hard.
I need to visit.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Say hi.
It's a good time. So
it's a group of pastors that get together and talk about the depths of their life, or just shoot the breeze, depending on the day
Yeah, it's been a really important. In fact, I think. I know Rod and I are writing a book about this model of discipleship of leaders.
Cool.
Which in the model is, do you want to know the model?
What's the model?
Hang out with them.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's going to be a really long book.
Hey, well, some books should be short.
Yeah. No, it's going to be stories from Rod woven together by a little commentary from myself, and maybe some stuff. I might be talking to you. I'm going to talk to a couple people who've engaged in such. I think we're a little. What we want to do is promote the discipleship of young leaders that people want to do. They know it needs to happen. They want to know how. And we're saying a lot of forget the models and the plans. And we want to give them a lot of stories as to why they should patiently, slowly just sit with people and be open to the deep conversation or open to whatever type of conversation is needed that they discern in the moment versus
right.
trying to have people on a path.
Talk a lot about the art of listening, because that's probably the one main thing that people need to learn how to do.
There'll be some of that.
There'll be people don't know how to listen.
No,
that's one of the problems.
No, that's true. Yeah, yeah, and what a funny thing to try to model on a podcast, because as we've talked about before, there sort of needs to be running dialogue on a podcast.
This is true, right? And I need to come in right now to say this is true.
Yeah, you don't want all these delays. And anyway, maybe. Ooh,
while you were speaking of that, while you were gone, I attempted last week because I thought, you know what, just be nice to tell people what's happening, let people know stuff is coming. Andy and I are going to be back. We're so
on the podcast.
Yeah, the podcast.
So you tried to solo.
I tried to solo. I managed to do like a little meditation for healing the city on Psalm 1, and that worked okay. Though as I listened to it, it sounds a lot like me preaching.
Yeah, you're right.
Right. It's not a conversation because it's a monologue, and monologues are
different.
It's different. Luckily, it's only 11 minutes, but I tried to do it for Faith Over Breakfast, and it just kept crashing. And I'm like, nope, not going to do this.
This just isn't right.
No.
Yeah. So what have I been doing? We have done some little getaways as a family during this time.
Cool. Where'd you go?
I can't remember. We haven't podcasted since.
Okay, so let's. I know a few things, and I think we need to set a few stories up. So let's set up the first big vacation where you had to sneak back into the United States.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that one.
Some tales of adventure.
Yeah, let's get that into that.
So I'll give a little setup in saying that my wife and I went on our honeymoon to the Bahamas, and this is 10 years ago. We've crossed our 10-year.
Congratulations!
Mark. Yeah,
that's a big deal.
I know. And we went there, but the thing was, right after our wedding, we took a day off between the wedding and the honeymoon. And as we were packing for the honeymoon, I said to my wife, "You got your passport, right?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, it's in the bank in the safety deposit box." And I said, "Safety deposit box, really?" And then she said, "Yeah, just in case, keep it safe." And her dad's a very safety conscious guy, kind of ingrained those things in her. Well, here's a problem. It was a holiday weekend. It was a holiday Monday.
No.
And we could not get it out. And that was sad. So we had to rebook everything. We missed 3 days of our 7-day honeymoon in the Bahamas.
This is 10 years ago.
So she's really been wanting to go back. I think we both have, but she kind of felt like we kind of got a lightning version. We didn't get the full
Bahamas.
But this time we decided to take our daughter, Abby, because she really loves sharks, and there seemed to be there would be ways that you could see sharks there. We'd actually seen one right off the beach when we were there. So we decided we would take her. We'd try to have some time to ourselves as well. Well, long story short, this island in the Bahamas, we went back to the same place, and we had heard that it had hurricane damage. It indeed is still very damaged from Hurricane Dorian. And so that was a thing. We still enjoyed it very much, but it's a little harder to just soak in the sun when there's like a destroyed house right next to you. And it's just
right. There's a little bit of trauma that you're sitting right next to you.
Well, and you could feel it in the people.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You could feel it. So the first thing that occurred, though, is we had a Airbnb in a small town that we really I especially had really connected to when we were there, and it felt just quiet, nice. Airbnb looked good. We got there. It's such a good location. You're just looking at the beach right on the porch. It wasn't that expensive. Long story short, it had rats in the Airbnb we found.
Oh, wow.
Not only did we find rats, we encountered the rats.
This is like a movie vacation.
One ran across my daughter in the night.
Oh, that's not good.
And we nor her, we didn't believe it was a rat until the next day when we were up there kind of talking before bed, and one just
ran across.
Took a stroll. Yeah. And it was like, okay, we're leaving. We got to leave. That's it. And so I booked the nicest resort in the city. I just went, you know what, Andy, we're spending money. We're going to the nicest resort. Your wife needs this. This is a big thing. We needed this. She wanted to come back. We're going to do this right.
Right.
So we booked the nicest place. It was, and actually I went to them and I said, hey, look, we're in a pickle. Do you have any deals? Do you have any last minute deals? And they gave us the best suite in this nicest resort for a discount. We had an incredible room, we thought we were close to the beach. Now we were even closer.
Wow. Beautiful.
So we're enjoying it. And to be honest, I'm not a resort guy, but about 3 days into this, I thought, you know what?
I'm a resort guy.
Okay.
Okay, I might be one.
Bring me another, I was just like sitting on the beach. I was like, okay, I read through, took a couple books about the Chicago Cubs history, laid on the beach, read 5 chapters, had some lunch, and went, what do I do next? Nothing. Cool.
That's awesome.
So that was fun.
Yeah.
And then Michaela was kind of developing a little bit of a cough. That getting into the Bahamas was like you had to fill out all kinds of stuff for COVID. A travel passport, and you had to do a lot more than I've experienced going anywhere else so far. And then to get out, you had to fly back, and you had to show proof of a negative test. Michaela developed a little bit of cough. We had taken a bunch of tests. She took one, and no problem. She's negative. We're like, cool, that's okay. And she's got a little, maybe it's that Airbnb, who knows. Well, the day before we were leaving, she goes, I'm feeling a little crummier, honestly. I should take another test because I would hate for us to be surprised.
Right.
And she took another one and was positive. And then I'm like,
no.
Shoot.
You're in the Bahamas.
We're in the Bahamas.
Just got
COVID. And so essentially, I don't know how to keep these stories short. I'm so sorry.
This is great. This is awesome. Storytelling is wonderful.
So I go to the concierge desk, at this resort. There's a Bahamian lady running the place. And I said, here's the deal. Here's what's going on right now is, my wife just tested positive for COVID. We leave tomorrow, basically. But, can you clue me what happens here? And she goes, well, she said, were you going to go to the clinic down the street to get your test? Because we kind of figured out. Yeah. And I said, yeah. She said, okay, don't go there. Because we had taken it out. She said, you didn't go there yet, right? I said, no, we took an at-home test. She says, don't go there. She says, if you go to the clinic and it gets entered into the kind of the government system, they take it very seriously. You're going to be, she and whoever's been around her are going to have to quarantine until everyone's tested negative. So if you get it in a week, you're going to have to keep staying. You're going to have to stay in the room you're in. You're going to have to pay to be here at the resort. Then they will consider reimbursing you if everyone in the room had a positive test. But if a couple of you don't, they might not reimburse you for that. So you could be here for weeks paying for this resort. She's
stuck in the room.
So you won't be able
to enjoy the resort.
Yeah, you won't be able to be out and about, and you're going to have to be paying, and you don't know if you're going to get your money back or not. And she just was like, "Trust me, you don't want to go down this road." And I was like, "So, what do we do?" And she says, take a boat. And I said, oh, okay. What boat? And she says, well, there's a ferry. We take it all the time. It goes straight to Fort Lauderdale. And even though the rules around COVID are you're supposed to test to re-enter, they don't don't do it on the boats. And so that's what you should do. They leave at night. Like it comes over in the morning, leaves at night. You should go tomorrow night, and then you'll make your flight the next morning. And so that's what we did. Is we booked the ferry, and we were leaving in the evening. It felt very like a night escape in a way, you know.
Oh my gosh.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
And it did cost us more, of course, to do all this, and we didn't, we couldn't get our money back on our flight or anything. So that was all kind of a thing. You're like, oh, bummer.
Yeah.
But we only missed, like a half day, if you will. Maybe call it a day because of the stressors at the end there, trying to figure it all out. But we just did that, and she just wore a lot of masks and, just try to be super careful on the way home. And Abby and I never got it. And we were in as close a proximity to her as we could have been.
Right.
And we never got it. So anyway, and she had she felt kind of crummy, but she got better. Yeah.
Wow. So there's the vacation to the Bahamas twice
has been disrupted.
Maybe you shouldn't go.
A friend of ours said, maybe that whole Bermuda Triangle thing.
You're right. No kidding.
Maybe there's something to it. I know.
Yeah. You want vacations like that to be relaxing, and sometimes they create more stress than they can, should. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, the front and the back end of it didn't turn out as. Yeah. But I really don't want to be a complainer, because there was this 4 or 5 day window in the middle where I felt probably for the first time in a while where I thought, I literally have nothing to do tomorrow or the next day, and I was like, that's nice.
And that's good, because I think there's a couple things. I think a lot of people have this in the modern world, but pastors have a little bit more of it in that in our jobs we make a lot of shifts. Mm-hmm. So you go from having a really intense conversation to maybe going to a podcast where you got to talk about some theological ideas,
or you're gonna fix the building.
You're gonna go paint or fix the toilet, and then you're playing with a kid, and then you're sitting over the finances,
kind of have your head in everything. At least small church pastors.
Yes, and so then you're thinking out, like, I got to get this sermon done. I need to gotta get this done. These people need, and so there's rare times, even on your days off, where your brain can stop and say, "Oh, well, I don't have anything to do tomorrow."
Yeah.
I don't have any obligations. I don't have anything at all. And so, and I see the difference, because I live with people who have jobs where they just literally come home and their job is not part of their life anymore. They don't even think about it.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different experience, and not everybody has that, but a lot of people do.
Yeah. And pastors have that extra layer of people might reach out at any given time. I try to have some boundaries with that, but it's still,
but the cell phone
you're still
has changed
aware. That. It really has.
I mean, 20 years ago, there's nothing, at least in our church, there's no Slack. There's no Discord. There's no ways to, there are not all these things happening. Yeah. You go to church and you listen to the answering machine, and your secretary hands you a list of things that you need to do. It's not it's not as frenetic.
Let's go back to that. Yeah. And then the other thing I was thinking about, so the other little getaway we did is our regular 4th of July weekend down in Bisbee.
Yeah. Which is kind of connected to your church, too.
Well, and it wasn't. That's an interesting thing, because it was just a group of us that did kind of go to the church, just would go for 4th of July. But it's become kind of, at some point, people were wanting to come to and be invited, and then there felt like there needed to be some level of organization to it.
Right.
And it's, I really do like that trip, but it dawned on me, especially this year, is like, this is a work trip.
Yeah.
This is officially a work trip. Like, people here want to talk to me about pastor stuff while on the trip, right? It's no longer like a couple friends are down here. It's like people want to work things out, or they're having interpersonal stuff, and I'm feeling like I'm involved, and I need to make sure the food, like, who else is going to make sure there's food? I got to be the one. Who's the point person with the church we're meeting up with down there? Me. And I'm going, and even if that were shared,
Right.
It's still a work trip.
Yeah, it's a work trip.
And that's you just need to classify it.
Yeah.
But it's still fun.
It's fun, but it's a work trip.
It's a work trip.
Well, you better have something you enjoy in your job, right? I mean,
yeah. I enjoy so many
60-40 is usually where you need to be at in your job. If there's not good things, then you're going to have a hard time doing your best.
Yeah, I know, and I enjoy so many things. It's just needing to know it is important to go. That though is work, even though it may not look, or it may not be typical.
Yeah, well, just it's in a sense, and this is even true for bigger churches that are run by boards and things like that. Still, is you still are self-employed in a sense. There's still a lot of self-regulating and motivation that you have to be a pastor.
Yeah, and not all have the same level of that, and that changes dynamics of things. And then, I've realized that on every team throughout my years, each person called into ministry has different levels of that, and how you kind of decide what's the model that you're going to hold everybody to, or whatever. That's definitely interesting.
Yeah, no, there's a lot going on in that.
So okay, there's some of my tales of adventure.
Fun
from the summer. What about you? What have you been up to?
All right, well, so I was actually going to go on vacation in August.
Yeah.
But my wife was like, "Hey, Eric, this is really expensive, but N.T. Wright, who's her and mine, one of our favorite theologians and New Testament scholars, he's going to be in Waco, Texas, lecturing on Romans 8, and I want to go.
Yeah.
But it's in June." So we made some rearrangements. June became our vacation month, and we decided to drive to Waco, Texas. So I have this.
Have you spent time in Waco, Texas?
I've never been to Waco before, so
I've never been there.
So it's kind of cool to take our little Corolla in. Okay, and I just bought it about a year ago. Done a lot of work on it. It's a nice car, really nice to drive. 2010. So we drive into Texas. And 1,000 miles in, the back bumper just detaches. So my wife says, "Hey, there's a weird noise." And she looked out the side of mirror, and the bumper is just like waving in the air. So we pull over. I'm able to snap it back on and manage to get to a gas station that had duct tape.
Oh, yeah.
So I duct taped our bumper back on, and that worked. And off we go. In fact, it's still duct taped. Get to Waco. Beautiful. Waco's just fun. It's an old town.
Yeah.
And it's like 150, I don't know. It's not huge. It's not a big town. But I didn't know anything about Magnolia. The flippers. If you go to Target, there's this section, it's Magnolia section. And it's done by these designers who have a television show.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know their names.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
I don't pay attention to these things. But N.T. Wright was at First Baptist, and Magnolia literally was across the street.
Wow.
So they have taken this, huge, maybe this entire block. They bought it. It was run down, the big silos, and they built. There's like a mini baseball diamond there. There's food trucks. They've restored a bunch of the buildings, the old building, an old church, and a bunch of bunk houses, like everything. And then they've got their stores and coffee shops and bakeries and all that kind of stuff. And it's packed. And there's people are sitting on like outdoor bean bags under trees, eating food. It's like where the town comes to hang out.
Yeah.
And I talked to this pastor's wife here in town, and she's like, we've been there 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Just to go visit. I'm like, I don't know why you go here 3 times, but they did.
Yeah.
And it's fun. So that was a big highlight. Going to hear N.T. Wright talk about Romans 8 was cool.
Yeah.
What Sue and I kind of tell people now is we thought we knew something about Romans 8. Now we know nothing.
Yeah.
It was 3.5 days, an hour and a half. 3 hour-and-a-half lectures.
Yeah.
And N.T. Wright does not take any time to have any kind of frivolous conversation.
Yeah.
He bows his head, he prays,
and
he welcomes people, and then he says, "Let's get started." And he opens and he goes.
Yeah.
And so my wife had like 15, 16 pages of notes. Yeah. We had the text, his translation and the Greek, and I just scribbled all over everything.
Wow.
It was fun, but I'm still digesting that.
Yeah.
So we head on the way home, and here's the exciting part. So the car's duct taped. We're getting to go, And we're driving through the back roads, highways of Texas, because that's a fun way to go. Lots of hills, lots of little towns. You have to, it's really interesting. You drive into a town, and they've slowed you down to 35 miles an hour. And then you come out of the town, it says 60 miles an hour. And then literally a half a mile later, it says 65. And then a half a mile later, it's 70. And then, it gets up to 80 or whatever. And so you're whizzing around. And I'm looking at this, and I'm saying, why are all these dead vultures all over the highway?
Huh.
And then we come up over this hill, and in the middle of the road, I'm flying around at 75 miles an hour, are 3 vultures eating another vulture.
Oh.
And the 2 of them, they all look up, they see my car bearing down on them. 2 of them are like, yeah, we're out. The other vulture looks at the car and's like, I'm going to have a bite before I go. Takes a bite and goes left. I'm like, okay, I can't hit my brakes. There's a guy sitting on my tail. So I'm just going to swerve around him, and he'll go one way, I'll go the other way.
And he swerved with you.
No, he just did not swerve fast enough, and he smashed into my side view mirror and shattered it. So for another 1,000 miles, I have no side view mirror, and I need to duct tape it. So the whole side view mirror is duct taped together so it doesn't fly apart, of which this week I have to fix it. I haven't gotten it fixed yet. So my car is just like all duct tape. So the funny is, like, my car went into Texas very pristine. It came out of Texas just a disaster.
That might be a metaphor for something.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was the fun part of our vacation.
Yeah.
I don't know why you go from hot Arizona to humid Waco, but there is a taco joint in Texas called Torchy Tacos.
Torchy Tacos.
If you ever go to Texas and you can find a Torchy Tacos, go. They are so good. I would say outside of the tortillas. I mean, the tortillas,
yeah.
But the meat and the different combinations they did, some of the best tacos I've had.
Wow.
And they have
this coming from a Tucson.
Yeah, they have some of this, like, the best nacho cheese stuff in the, like, Texas. It's award-winning or something, and it's very good, too.
Wow. Look at that.
So go Torchy Tacos. That was my vacation, really. I mean, we went down Sierra Vista for a couple of days before we jumped back into reality. But
you do a Sierra Vista thing, don't you? Got an Airbnb there you like? Or
something? Well, and Sierra Vista is 20 degrees cooler.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, 10 to 20. It's beautiful, and it rains there.
Bisbee was in the mid 80s, raining like a lot more. Yeah, it was really
I have seriously been looking into, like, trying to buy something down in Sierra Vista.
Dude. You and Sierra Vista, me and Bisbee, same story. We like to go there so much that I'm like,
well, I just need to buy something down there. I don't know. Like, you hear me saying I need to buy something down there. I would need to rob Peter to pay Paul, and so that's why I haven't bought something down there. It's not like I have a lot of money and I'm a rich person. So I just really would like to buy something down there. Yeah, but the price of the houses are not.
Yeah, we are in the more creative zone of that thinking, where it's like, we're not in the position of like, hey, let's buy a second house or something at all.
Right.
But it's like, we could finagle some little way to buy something and then create something. Yeah. And maybe we roll a little trailer onto it, and then maybe someday there's a house, hopefully, or something. But it's just such a regular getaway that you go, it'd be nice if you could just consistently depend on it, and it's so close. Yeah. But yet so different. Like, I think, Sierra Vista hour, Bisbee hour and a half. Like, it's not hard to get over there, and
there's just like cool, things to go see and do. Yeah. If you want to go see and do things, or you don't have to do anything. Right. It's just a nice.
Well, that's my favorite thing. So Bisbee is where my family, my dad's side of the family's from. So we've been going there my whole life, in a little mining town, if you're not familiar with it. But I'm so familiar with it that I don't feel the tourist impulse there.
Right.
Like, I need to go check everything out. I like it there a lot.
Yeah.
But I also, I'll go there for a little day trip, and I'll just take a book and I sit in the coffee shop, and I feel like I can go for a walk, but I don't need to go discover it because I'm familiar.
Right.
And I have this touristy itch when I go to I want to see new things.
Oh yeah, you're a touristy kind of guy.
And
I'm not that way.
But. Yeah, if I'm in a new place, I want to check it out, and I can't.
Right.
get into that kind of rest pattern, but in Bisbee I can because I'm so familiar with it.
Yeah, I have to go to vacation to the same place maybe 4 or 5 times because I'm like, okay, I want to find 1 or 2 things that are new, really, really enjoy them. Come back the next time, enjoy one of them, and find a couple other new ones, and really, really enjoy them, and then slowly.
I do like the lightning round the first couple times where I'm just
the lightning
like on foot trying to see all the things.
That's
and my own version of that. By that, I tend to mean like I want to find all the thrift stores in whatever town.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's fun.
So. The other thing that I've done that actually I want to segue back to you, but I want to set this up by saying the other thing is one of my newer roles, it connected to my church world job at through Resonate Global Mission, which is our churches are connected to that. I've done a little travel with them. I probably will for a while. It's more of a regional role, and so I have been visiting some other church contexts more, which has been doing something interesting. It's been motivating me or getting me out of our context and maybe getting me unstuck a little bit.
Yeah.
And so some of that tends to happen just over the summer for me too, if things slow down or I go somewhere else. How about you? Like, do you re-enter from the summer from listening to, it doesn't have to be. Yeah, I mean, you went and listened to N.T. Wright. Like, are you coming back into this next year with some new emphasis or ideas or passion or something clicked for you? Or how are you coming into this new school year, if you will?
The new school year. Well, I mean, I try very intentionally to use my vacations both to relax. I kind of have 3 parts. One, I need to just relax. For me, that means spending extra time painting and playing some board games and spending time, like really intentional time with my children and my wife, like just to ourselves, enjoying one another. 2, I try to get out, like to go to N.T. Wright conference, go to other churches. So I did visit your church. I visited Kai and that's church, which is City Church, I think, Central City Church. I think that's the name of it. They're over
south of downtown.
Yeah, south of downtown. Love their church. Yeah. Love them. They're just so fun. They're connected to Chi Alpha.
Yeah.
So I went there. Like in some ways, they're like the Pentecostal version of the Village. So it's just really fun to be part of it.
Yeah.
And that was cool. And then having that as a reset of remembering. I like to remember that the Village offers something very unique to the world, and that other places are trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And to experience the body of Christ is a really important thing. And it helps you value what you have.
Yeah.
And also at the same time be like, oh yeah, like there are ways that I can grow and learn.
That's just a quick note. I have found it a great joy. Anytime we're out of town on the Lord's Day, I love going to other churches, and I'm trying to keep our family in a rhythm. I think that's really important, but also it opens our eyes. Yeah. I notice it the most probably my daughter to the bigger body of Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Coming back from me personally, it's usually the third thing is that I need to have some kind of personal reformation. Like usually I'm burnt out, and that's when the enemy and your own just kind of sin nature begins to build, I think, a level of contempt for others and yourself.
Sure.
Because you're just burnt out, you feel used and abused at some level.
Sure.
And you're just, it's a tiring job. It's a job that requires a lot of internal fortitude and discipline. And so you need to have a reset. And I think so that process happens for me on vacation, and I felt like it happened this time. So coming back to the Village, for me, usually the message is to bring myself more present to the moment and less about the past or what actually is happening in the future, to try to be as present as possible to things. So that's a big part of it. for us as a church, I mean, and I suspect Jurgen this process too a little bit, is that Rod is retiring, and we're bringing on hopefully a new elder who will also be in the role of pastor, and so we're hopefully trying to work out how we're going to pay them, and there's some stuff working out in the denomination that we're hoping will help along with that. And so that's exciting because it gives us hopefully 2 years to really expand who we are and grow in a way we've not been able to. And so there's going to be some different staff dynamics, and I'm excited about what God's going to do with all of that. So, so I'm coming back a lot more refreshed than I thought I was going to come back.
Yeah.
And that I was feeling pretty spent by the time I headed into vacation.
Yeah.
I think maybe I fully recovered from COVID this year. Like maybe July, I could say, the last 2 years I've recovered just from the drama and the trauma of all of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
still feel like a little bit of that lingers with me, and not like the sickness COVID, but the sickness COVID,
the cultural sickness.
Cultural sickness that was exposed by that time.
Yes,
but I still feel like that. I'll think I'm good. I think I've kind of past that, and then there'll be one interaction where you just go, oh, I'm right back. Like I'm remembering that, or I'm worried about that happening again or whatever. So that's a thing. But probably the most invigorating thing, we did have that on vacation. We, in the Bahamas, we went to a Bahamian Anglican little church that was super cool. I just loved it. And actually, we went to a Baptist service the same day, just my daughter and I, that was like outside, and some college kids were there doing a project. So they were kind of co-leading it, but that was fun too. But the little Anglican service was probably my favorite. And things like that, just, I don't know, you get drawn out of your church context, and your eyes are open to that makes sense, the bigger body, and I love it. But the travel, the two pieces, I think I already told you about Houston. That was before the summer, technically, but going and just seeing some different things that are going on in Houston, and this is just sister churches of ours. Then had a similar experience in Chicago. For me, I think the thing that switched for me was I felt very challenged that there are some people that are really pushing the boundaries of what feels reasonable in ministry. And I think we all have our versions of this. I think you do a lot of this around the community and the community's engagement with one another. You push the boundaries on that. And so these churches, some of them were pushing the boundaries with like what's possible in the area of like racial work and reconciliation. Like they really did. Like, I mean, one of these pastors, had a story of decades worth of time where they went, we're going to do the thing that people say you can't do. And we're going to really commit to it. And they didn't have a huge group commit, but the group that committed to it's a really rich story. And it has even borne some just incredible fruit even in the past year. And then there was a church that was kind of saying, look, like during the pandemic, the city started to ask us if we could help with things, and it threw the doors open for us to be really engaged in our community in incredible ways. And like they're a small church that's doing the things that they're doing look like they're a big church, but they're not. But they were just willing to move into this, like take risk, trust God. I think I've come back from that a little invigorated, because for me, there's some things, I'm a big idea person, you know this about me, but I often kind of diminish those a little. I'm like, yeah, that's too much, or I probably shouldn't. I should be gentle. I should hint toward what I hope for or want to see. But I kind of came back this year going, maybe I need to like cast vision a little more. Maybe I need to, the things I want to get excited about as a believer, maybe I should just be excited and just not be afraid it won't work. Just see what happens.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
So yeah, I feel a little invigorated by that. And so kind of, I want to lean in. One of my practices has been with some of the people in our church and leaders to just name a couple things I hope will happen that I think I would have just kind of kept down low, but just to go, I hope this happens. And just kind of put it out there. So yeah, that's been an interesting effect. So not so much from vacation, more from those other trips. So yeah, any other things like that you and I are very different in these regards, but
yeah, well, I mean, because of the way, it's not that because I planted a church 20 years ago. It's not that I'm not a dreamer.
No, you totally are. It's just different categories, and I think they're valuable ones.
Well, the other thing is I'm also very practical. Like I may dream, but then I'm like, okay, I want to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And so I need to how do I do that? And I can only do one of these, so I'll just choose to get rid of all the ones except for one.
So here's maybe the question that would pertain to what I'm wrestling through in this is, do you think that is there any part of that is like the enemy squelching something good? Or is that practical side just yourself, your limits, the limits of others around you?
Well, I actually think there are three kinds of leaders. You got to know what kind of leader you are, and then you need to surround yourself with the other kinds.
Sure.
So there are the people who are big dreamers, and I'll say that most effective leaders are hybrids.
Sure.
But
that aren't just dreamers that can't execute anything.
But lots of leaders land into these categories in ways where they need to surround themselves with some people that 100%. Can help. But so there's 100%. The dreamers who just have hundreds and hundreds of ideas, and when you look at them, they're really great ideas, but they don't accomplish any of them.
Sure.
It's really hard for them to get. Then there are the ones who struggle to have a dream, but they can take you from A to B. Like they are highly skilled.
Yeah.
Give us me the idea, and then I will plan out how to get you there. And then there are kind of leaders that are crisis managers. Yeah. So you drop them in a crisis. They fix everything. And you never want a crisis manager to lead your church.
Yeah. And a lot of them
unfortunately is one of my strengths. So I am a crisis
we
leader.
got to take you down.
Yeah, take me down. The other, I kind of hybrid between A and B and crisis. And I have a bit of all of those. So I'm a bit more of a hybrid, but I probably have my strongest strength in the crisis.
Yeah.
And then I'm really good at getting you from A to B.
Yeah.
And then I do dream. I have ideas, but I don't have hundreds of them.
So the dreamer here has that been Rod?
Rod has dreams. Yes, he dreams a lot, and Mark is that way too. And what usually has happened, because I tend to be a person who's create structures. I love structures. Just give me I love to play with structures. Yeah. So usually it's take a dream and put it into our existing structure. So for instance, I told our leadership team, I don't know, probably 5 years ago, my vision for this church is someday we're going to have a healing center. I didn't have a better name for it at the time. I still don't. And it's going to be in this building, and we're not going to be in this building. And we're headed that way. And this is what it's going to look like, and this is what I want to do. I don't know what's going to happen. I think this is what God wants us to do. Probably church needs to grow some for that to really be manifest. So we'll just start a podcast called Healing the City, and we'll start getting people thinking about it, and everybody will know our mission even more. Like everyone, from the very bottom, the kids will say, Healing the City, 1% of the time. That's what we're doing. So that's kind of what I've done, and I'm willing to wait for that dream for a long time and just plod along to get there.
Which is good.
And then it's integrate all of Rod's little dreams into that. Anchor them onto this. Anchor that one here. Let that one float away. Bring that one in. And that's how I have operated from the very beginning is bring this dream of Rod's, anchor it into this vision.
Yeah.
So I'd say the vision of the village is mine, and a lot of the ideas that float around that vision are Rod's.
Yeah.
And that's how we've operated. And then Mark has come in and brought a ton more.
And he's got new ideas.
Yes, and modified a lot of, I would even say, what Healing the City looks like.
Yeah.
So, but I tell you, if you're in a church structure, what happens is if you have an A to B leader, it's very hard to help. Those churches tend to succeed for a while, and then 20, 30 years in begin to decline because they don't have vision.
Yeah.
If you're,
John and I went to Alan Hirsch was in Phoenix.
I saw that.
Yeah. And
I would
so
have liked to have gone to that.
Yeah, totally. And I'm not 100% on the same page with that dude all the time, but there were some really good things, and I think one of them had to do with he calls it apostolic leaders.
Yes.
But his thing was a lot of times in churches we tend to lean on them to get a church started and then want them to transition into one of these other type of leaders and get frustrated when they don't. And then they tend to go somewhere else and start something because they get frustrated or we get frustrated with them. And that's really unfortunate because you kind of need this balance. He's got he's pulling from Ephesians, apest, evangelists.
The fivefold.
Yeah, the fivefold. Prophets, shepherds, teachers, evangelists.
Yeah.
Did I get it? Yeah. But his thing was, you need those idea people, your people who kind of go out into uncharted territory. You need to keep letting them draw you into further uncharted territory. But then you need those like shepherd type people who are consistent and like there with folks. And in our context, John and I took that test, and he's real high on shepherd, right? And I'm peeking out on the idea person, and it's funny because we're at year like 8 of the church I planted. If you talk epicenter, it's like 11, but or even is it 12? Sheesh.
Well, if you talk just mission church, it's 8 years.
Right? Yeah, but there's been, and COVID was part of this. It almost feels like it hasn't been that long because there's almost like new realities which is interesting.
Well, you're in church too right now.
Yeah. But still I think we're at that point where we're needing to be a little more, we're needing that shepherd. We're needing that consistency, but also we could get into major ruts. Mm-hmm. Like we could just kind of go, okay, we kind of like where we are, and we could just roll into irrelevance in a way. And it's an interesting thing to think about and go, so this is where sometimes the me guy would get bored and move on, or my elders would go, you know what, you're not pastoring well.
Right.
Thanks for getting this started, but people aren't being taken care of. We need a new pastor.
Right.
Like it's not happening, but it could. Sure. And it made me think, man, this is probably a really good time to think, what does it mean? What are those continual and new ideas that I have? How do those play out here? While also we lean into this need for kind of stability and discipleship.
My experience has been that that combo, you can get your kind of crisis leader from your elders or other people in your church. And you may need to empower them in some ways. But my thing is with the dreamers is they just are constant ideas. Yeah. And they need to learn to control it. Sure. They need to learn to... And to if an idea doesn't get adopted, to not throw a fit and leave. Right. Well, I think you have to learn to work in tandem with the people like, you and John, where you have these ideas and you have a courage to say, I have this idea, help me. What are we doing to get our people completely on board? Because what I've learned is that the pastor, the guy who's good at shepherding, eventually has all the cash. So if you want your dream to work, you need him. You need him because what he's going to do is get everybody on board and get everybody moving towards a dream. And I think that is key in working together. Yeah. Is being able to all right, here's the new. And I think it's the dreamer has to be willing to dream with his and be courageous about those dreams. Dream and be courageous, but also where I thought you were going to go is not to dream outside of or over the head of of people, but to let it be a shared dream or a dream that is meant for these folks. It's not yours. Has a connection to it. Yeah. Which I think that means the person who has more of the gift of ideas and lots of them needs to be really focused on spending, like, connected to the Spirit of God and really working on that.
So probably yesterday, this was oddly instructive. I didn't expect it. I listened to How I Built This. This is an NPR show.
Okay.
Guy Raz, how it's founder stories, which I find very interesting because of the type of person that I am. But the Jimmy Fallon one is really good. I think pastors need to listen to it because he exhibits a lot of the traits of it's a comedian, but it was almost as if it dawned on him as he was getting interviewed how many people followed him. It's like he was discovering it.
Right.
Because Guy Raz was interviewing him and he said, how many employees do you have with the show now? And he goes, 400. And he was like, wow. And then all the people that watch you and then you've got these other little companies. He goes, do you employ over 1,000 people yourself? And Jimmy goes, oh, yeah. You could tell he was like, oh, whoa, I do, but he's an idea guy.
Yes.
Big time. It sounds like crazy stuff. And some of the ideas work, some of them don't. But, there's this, what I got from him was that the ideas they're about others.
Yes.
And they somehow empower others but he understands the role of his vision in it and how much his vision needs to be there for this to work. It's like this balance, but you kind of feel like you're on the journey of hearing him figure out something that he's doing really well. And I found it really instructive. Yeah, check it out.
That's awesome. I love Jimmy Fallon. I mean, I don't always like watching his, what do you call it? Is a late night show but when you watch different side things that are done by him, he's just a very thoughtful and engaging person, and creative. Like he's crazy creative.
Yeah.
I think just to go back to the church and the idea thing, Andy Stanley is usually who I look at for this, not for his theology, but for the way he understands church systems.
And he does.
And I think some of it is he knows how to get everybody on mission. And then he's an idea guy, and to get his ideas into the mission. Yeah. And everyone can just digest his ideas because they already have the system to digest them. Yeah. And I think that's really key. And I think that's what succeeded at the Village after 20 years is we have a system that can digest the ideas for the most part.
And we need more system probably.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, that's comes over time sometimes. And as you face problems. Yeah. And that's where where really my strength comes in is the crisis. And we need to figure out how to do this with children. It's a crisis. Things are okay. Well, I can step in. I can make this work. Yeah. I can leave it. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but at least I can bring order to whatever is going on there. So it's not just crisis as people are fighting with each other. It's crisis in the system that you need good people to kind of help with. So,
yeah. Well, that's cool. Dude, I got to get going.
All right, man.
So
we should do our intro and say goodbye.
That's right. Well, let's say goodbye now. Thanks for tuning in. We know it's been a while, but you can always send us questions, faithoverbreakfast@gmail.com. In fact, I believe the last time I bumped into one of your folks at Crave, they had a question. And so just a reminder, send it in, faithoverbreakfast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Gives us an extra thing to talk about. I'm sure we have plenty to talk about coming off the summer, but we'll weave it in.
Yeah,
so send it on over.
And we'll send you a book. We promise. We'll give you something.
Thanks for tuning in. And remember to rate Eric 5 stars.
Andy 1. Andy 5.
On wherever you listen to your podcast. So thanks for tuning in.
You've been listening to Faith Over Breakfast with Pastor Eric Siepen and Pastor Andy Littleton. Please share us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you.